Evening, everybody. Michelle is here. I wanted to do a evening video to see what the lighting looks like, and let me lift this up here. I just absolutely love the outdoors. I really, really do. To be outdoors is just like, something I truly enjoy. I mean, I'm not enjoying the weather, I'll admit that, but I truly, truly enjoy the outdoors and the kind of peace and comfort it brings. Even though, like I said, the temperatures, the heat is intense. But I want to come on through and give you another episode of the pending extinction of the mediocre man. So many of our descendants, and it's not too far into the future, so many of our descendants are going to ask, what happened to the mediocre man? Where are they? The ones that were so-called privileged, part of this high-class elite, part of this high-class pedigree of usually biological white males. What happened to them? Where are they? And a lot of our descendants are going to start doing some research, and they're going to figure out what happened to the mediocre man, who are usually biological white males. They're going to understand and trace back the ancestry of the mediocre man and understand what was in place to cause all of them to go extinct, meaning that their lineage no longer was able, not that it was a choice of theirs, but their lineage was unable to procreate, regardless of the interventions, the interference, the invasions of these so-called fertility doctors or scientists or themselves. A lot of them have this belief that they are the perfect men, that they are perfect specimens of a man. And they've been feeling this way for decades upon decades, centuries upon centuries, millennia, that they are the top of the line, the high class, the high caliber man. And so thus what they've done essentially is caused their own demise. And this all, like I said, started back decades, thousands of years ago, where these so-called mediocre men believed that they deserve the finer things in life and that everybody else had to be beneath them. That they had to be beneath them, and the mediocre man believed that everybody else was supposed to work for them. Everybody else is supposed to be slaving themselves to death for the mediocre man. The mediocre man was brutal. The mediocre man secretly hated biological women. Why? Because the biological women were grotesque by the mediocre man. The mediocre man caused a lot of the biological women's skin to crawl. The women were grossed out in the presence of the mediocre man. But unfortunately, the biological woman, or women in general, believed that they also were beneath these mediocre men, and therefore was property, in addition to other human beings, were properties of these mediocre men. And so the biological women remained subservient and subjugated themselves and were submissive to these mediocre men until the innately inclines came along and made the biological woman aware of the fact that, that she's a human being and she deserves to be treated equally and fairly. And so over the course of time, the biological woman recognized her power and the energy of her power. And thus she was able to snap out of it and realize that she doesn't have to be subjugating herself to a biological man, also known as behaving in a mediocre fashion, the biological woman eventually started developing herself properly to be a human being in the true sense. Whereas the mediocre man only wanted to remain superior over everybody else. The mediocre man did not want to be taught the truth. The mediocre man did not want to know the truth. The mediocre man felt like they were the answer. They felt like they were the example of what a biological man ought to be. Little did they know they were operating beneath human beings that propagated on this planet almost billions upon billions of years ago. In other words, a mediocre man was acting more subhuman and was not classified as a genuine human being in the true sense. I talked about how the Neanderthals and the Peking man went extinct. And I've also said to you there was no reason whatsoever that the Neanderthals and the Peking men should have gone extinct. Whereas, the majority of them, the blood of them are still present in some descendants. So I said to you, a lot of scientists have no idea. They'll tell you and pretend they know why did the Neanderthals go extinct. Well, if you do the math, you'll recognize the Neanderthals did not adapt to and develop themselves into what it meant to be a genuine human being in the true sense. And what does that mean? All that meant is that they did not continue to develop themselves. They did not continue to protect themselves. They thus became subservient, feminine, and unable to protect themselves from the environment. Okay? That is happening for a lot of other races of people, not only for the mediocre man. But the mediocre man is clueless to how they are involved, that they are the source of why they are going extinct. They want to point fingers and blame everybody else that they are being replaced. And they are under this delusion that other people are responsible for why they are being replaced. Well, they do not understand it. They are the sole responsible party for why the mediocre man will go extinct. So again, our descendants, relatively early descendants, are going to ask the question, what happened to the mediocre man? And they'll be able to do the math because artificial intelligence is registering this as well, and will be able to lay out with factual evidence to support why the mediocre man went extinct. There will be more to come. Contemplate, cultivate what I just said. I know the lighting is not good, but pay attention to my sounds and tones and understand what's going on around you, and ask yourself, am I a source of my own demise? Do I consider myself a mediocre man? And if so, how can I change the outcome of my life? How can I change my behaviors and actions and remain a true, genuine human being in a true sense without causing my own demise and extinction?